When her red high heels stepped into the elevator, every employee instantly switched into full alert mode.
Oh my God. No, no, no!
In front of her, you absolutely could not appear without makeup, and you were strictly forbidden to wear flat shoes. Working at one of the world's top fashion magazines, Miranda's rules could only be followed without question. With just a single glance she could steer the direction of fashion, and yet this overwhelmingly powerful queen was still the dream boss for countless girls, because anyone who could survive 1 year as her assistant could walk into any magazine as editor-in-chief level. A girl reached the final interview with an impressive resume, but after one look at her outdated outfit, Miranda casually asked a fashion question and immediately discovered that Andy knew nothing about fashion. Her self-introduction that followed was even less interesting, and Andy awkwardly prepared to leave. But suddenly she felt unwilling to give up.
You're right. I don't fit in here. I am not skinny or glamorous, and I don't know that much about fashion, but I'm smart. I learn fast, and I will work very hard.
I've got the exclusive on the Cavalli for Gwyneth. But the problem is, with that huge feathered headdress that she's wearing, she looks like she's working the main stage at the Golden Nugget.
Thank you for your time.
Working here, no one cared how nice your words sounded, because everyone's time was extremely precious. Andy could only leave the building quietly, but suddenly Emily called out to her. She had just gotten the job every girl dreamed of, and she had no idea that this was only the beginning of a nightmare. Every morning at 6 a.m., she was woken up and had to prepare coffee before Miranda arrived at the office. She could be sent out to pick up clothes at any moment, and she even had to walk Miranda's dogs, and she wasn't allowed to leave her desk for a single second while in the office, staying on standby 24 hours a day, even holding in her need to use the restroom. Andy stayed intensely focused at all times, but no matter how hard she worked, Miranda never spared her a real glance.
You do coat. Do the coat.
Fortunately, the employees did not scheme against each other, because one person's mistake meant everyone suffered. So Emily often covered for her without hesitation. Yet Andy still made a mistake. When she saw Miranda selecting belts, she couldn't help letting out a laugh.
Something funny?
To Andy, those two belts looked exactly the same, and she couldn't understand why everyone found it so hard to choose. But that kind of attitude touched Miranda's bottom line.
Stuff? Okay, I see. You think this has nothing to do with you.
She said that when you choose that sloppy blue sweater in your closet, thinking you look proper and beautiful, you have no idea that in 2002, a designer created a line of blue evening gowns, and then mid-range and low-end brands followed, releasing all kinds of blue clothing, until the color finally entered department stores, which is how you manage to pick it from piles of discounted items. No matter the final form, that shade of blue carried a value of millions and the efforts of countless people.
It's comical how you think that you've made a choice that exempts you from the fashion industry when in fact you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
All she could do was pour out the humiliation from work to her boyfriend. Andy constantly reminded herself that if she endured for 1 year, she could jump to any magazine, and no matter how powerful Miranda was, she had to stick it out here. However, she completely underestimated how difficult the queen truly was. On a rare weekend when Miranda was away on a trip, she finally had a chance to have dinner with her father, but halfway through the meal, the phone rang. Because of the weather, Miranda's flight was cancelled, but she needed to hurry back to watch her twin daughter's performance, and Miranda demanded that Andy book her a return ticket immediately. It seemed the dinner with her father was ruined, and without time to complain, Andy rushed to contact every airline, answering Miranda's urgent calls at the same time.
Someone must be getting out. Call Donatella, get her jet. Call everybody else that we know that has a jet, Irv. This is your responsibility. This is your job. Get me home.
But no matter what connection she used, no flight could take off in time.
My God, she's going to murder me.
Clearly, Miranda missed her daughter's performance, and she felt deeply disappointed in Andy, believing she had chosen the wrong person. She originally thought hiring a plain and plump girl would be different from those fashionable and slim assistants before, but now it seemed even those pretty vases were better. Andy was about to explain that she had done everything she could, but Miranda didn't want to hear a word. and tears fell from Andy's eyes. She had sacrificed everything to do this job well, yet instead of encouragement, she received only blame. She confided in Nigel, but instead of comforting her, he advised her to quit early, because everyone here worked hard out of their love for fashion, while Andy was forced into it and full of complaints.
Do you want me to say poor you? Miranda's picking on you. Poor you, poor Andy. Wake up, Six. She's just doing her job.
At that moment, Andy finally understood that if she couldn't survive Miranda's training, how could she improve herself enough to jump to any magazine? So under Nigel's guidance, Andy began actively learning fashion, abandoning her old dressing style, embracing a polished, confident look, and this transformation truly amazed everyone. Her co-workers saw her differently, and even Miranda's eyes lit up. Unable to resist turning back to look at her, beyond her upgraded presence, she had also figured out all of Miranda's demanding work habits, solving needs before Miranda even voiced them, leaving Miranda temporarily with nothing to criticize. So Andy's tasks grew more important, and one day she was sent to a reception to collect design plans from Miranda's designer. Maybe because she had become stylish and radiant, she caught the attention of Christian, a famous editor-in-chief, who approached her. He was Andy's idol from her university years. Although she wanted to continue talking, Miranda's call summoned her again. This time, her job was to deliver clothes personally to Miranda's home. Originally, this was Emily's responsibility, which showed just how much Andy's status had risen in Miranda's eyes. When Andy first arrived at the villa, she had no idea where she was supposed to place the items, and at that moment the sound of a child came from the stairs. And under the twins' layered coaxing, she walked up the staircase that could end her entire career, because upstairs she happened to witness Miranda arguing with her husband. Crossing the line into a superior's private matters was already a fatal mistake, and on top of that she saw something she absolutely should not have seen. Sure enough, the next day Miranda began to make things difficult, giving Andy an impossible challenge. She said the twins wanted to read the next unpublished volume of Harry Potter, and she had to get it before 3 p.m. She also required Andy to prepare a premium steak within 15 minutes, and making a mistake on either task meant packing up and leaving. Realizing disaster was coming, Andy didn't dare pause for even a second, rushing out to buy the steak while calling every publishing house she could, nearly using every connection available. The steak was delivered on time, but Miranda suddenly changed her plans and said she would go out to eat with a client, and as she left she specifically emphasized it. It was obvious she never wanted to see Andy again. Finally, Andy gave up completely, and instead of facing endless difficulties, she decided it was better to resign with dignity. And when she told her boyfriend what she planned to do, he fully supported her because Andy had seemed like a completely different person due to her job. But just then fate brought an unexpected gift, because Christian, the editor she had met at the reception, somehow miraculously obtained the manuscript before 3 p.m. even arrived. Andy completed this impossible task.
One copy. What are my twins gonna do with that? Share?
No, I made 2 copies and had them covered, reset, and bound so that they wouldn't look like manuscripts. This is an extra copy to have in file, you know.
Well, where are these fabulous copies? I don't see them anywhere.
This time Miranda had nothing to say, and she had no reason to continue making things difficult. Today was her boyfriend's birthday, and she had wanted to leave work early to celebrate. But the moment she walked out of the building, she received an urgent call, because Miranda wanted her to attend a charity gala and she had to memorize the entire guest list with Emily within 2 hours. Their job at the gala was to constantly remind Miranda which executive was approaching to greet her, so Miranda could appear as if she knew them very well. Even though Andy completed the task perfectly, she returned home after midnight and had already missed her boyfriend's birthday. She wanted to make it up to him, but he truly could not understand, because Andy had become someone he no longer recognized due to this job. They had once struggled together at the bottom, and even though life had been difficult, at least they were happy. But between work and life, Andy chose the former, and they eventually parted ways because of her choice. After several months of probation, Andy earned Miranda's trust, and she was promoted to replace Emily as the first assistant, and she would also accompany Miranda to Paris Fashion Week next month. Andy knew that going to Paris had always been Emily's dream, and Emily had been dieting just to work her tour in Paris, so Andy felt guilty taking this position.
If you don't go, I'll assume you're not serious about your future at Runway or any other publication.
That night, Andy wrestled with her thoughts for a long time, because when your personal life becomes non-existent, it means your career is finally on the right track. The next day Miranda arrived at the office, and the coats that should have been thrown onto Andy were now all thrown onto Emily. Instead of feeling flattered, Andy felt a deeper uneasiness beneath the surface. At that moment, Miranda told her to deliver this decision to Emily. Yet at that very moment, Emily got into an accident while out running errands. Andy could only go to the hospital and tell her everything that had happened. Her body was already in pain, and now she had to endure emotional devastation as well.
Emily,
I said go!
Andy's rise at work pushed her further away from her circle of friends, and even her childhood friend began to criticize her changes, asking whether losing her freedom was worth it for a job. At this point Andy felt lost, and she didn't know whether the life she had now was what she truly wanted. But she still followed Miranda to Paris to attend the fashion week that everyone in the industry dreamed of. There she achieved a leap in status, meeting countless celebrities and luxury designers, going from nervous and restrained to slowly blending into everyone's conversations. And once again she crossed paths with Christian, and the two agreed to finally have a proper dinner once work was finished. Returning to the hotel, Andy ran into Miranda without makeup, and this time Miranda showed no attitude at all and told Andy that she was about to divorce, but she had no time to deal with her family matters now, because her schedule for the coming days was completely packed. And just like Andy, Miranda chose her career over her personal life.
you want me to cancel your evening? I can.
Don't be ridiculous. Why would we do that?
The next morning, Andy learned from Christian that the magazine planned to remove Miranda from her position and replace her with a younger editor-in-chief, and that person happened to be Miranda's hated rival. Hearing this, Andy could no longer hold back, and she needed to deliver this news to Miranda immediately. But no matter how she called, Miranda hung up impatiently before she could even speak. She rushed to the hotel to inform Miranda in person, but Miranda shut her out because she was busy with work. She had no choice but to stop Miranda when the event began. But after hearing her news, Miranda was not surprised at all and instead complained that Andy carried a perfume scent she disliked, acting completely indifferent to who would replace her. It was not until the event started, after hearing Miranda's speech, that Andy finally understood that the decision from upper management had already leaked. So Miranda took the initiative with a list in hand, telling the executives that if they replaced her, these key staff members would leave with her, and the consequences would be obvious. After securing her position, Miranda announced another piece of news. Her rival, who was supposed to take her place, was reassigned to another position, and that position was the one Nigel had worked and waited for over 18 years to obtain. He had thought it was finally his turn for promotion, but he never expected that he would become the sacrifice in Miranda's effort to secure her own power. On the way back to the hotel, Miranda still thanked Andy for her concern, saying she saw a reflection of herself in Andy.
You can see beyond what people want and what they need, and you can choose for yourself.
But Andy argued that they were not the same kind of person at all, because she would never undermine someone else for her own benefit. Yet Miranda said, when you worked hard and surpassed Emily, you had already done exactly that. Don't tell me you had no choice.
Live the way you live.
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Andrea. Everybody wants this. Everybody wants to be us.
After finishing these words, Miranda put on her sunglasses and skillfully displayed her signature business smile, stepping gracefully into the crowd of cameras at the hotel entrance. Hearing her words, Andy finally confirmed that this was not the kind of job she truly wanted. This time she did not follow after her, because from beginning to end she had never intended to replace anyone, and she had only become outstanding under the pressure of the job. When faced again with Miranda's call, she finally made up her mind and threw away the annoying pager. Returning to New York, she went back to being the simple and unpretentious girl she once was. During her interview at the new newspaper, the manager said that while doing a background check, he received a fax from Miranda,
saying that of all the assistants she's ever had, you were by far her biggest disappointment. And if I don't hire you, I am an idiot. Must have done something right.
And just like that, Andy obtained the job she had truly dreamed of. She called Emily specifically, saying she brought back a batch of clothes from Paris that she never had the chance to wear and wanted Emily to help her handle them.
And I'll have to get them taken in. I mean, they'll drown me. But I suppose I could help you out. I will have Roy pick them up this afternoon.
Thanks, Em. I appreciate it. Good luck.
Sometime later, Andy saw Miranda again, and she greeted her from afar. And as expected, Miranda did not respond, but in the car, she quietly admired this outstanding yet willingly ordinary girl. In a certain sense, they really were the same kind of people, except that what they pursued was different.
Go.
The movie ends here. There was a time when I could not understand what this movie was trying to say, thinking it was just a workplace story about a few women, but looking back, I finally realized that what it conveys is not the pursuit of material things but the idea that when staying true to yourself and living independently, anyone can be a queen.